So you've been through mediation. You tried to find some middle ground, and nothing. The conversation just stalled out. The big question is, what happens now? Let's map out your next steps, starting right now.
You're probably feeling pretty frustrated right now. Maybe even a little lost, right? I mean, you put in the time, you put in the energy to try and find a resolution, and it didn't work out. That feeling of being completely stuck, totally normal.
But listen, this is so important. This is not the end of the road. I want you to think of this moment less like a failure and more like a crossroad. You now have choices to make, and understanding those choices, that's where your power really lies.
Okay, so before we can make a smart choice, we got to get a handle on what exactly just happened. Let's break down the technical term for this situation, the impasse.
An impasse. That's the official term for it. It's basically when everyone's just stuck. Even with a neutral person there to help, you just can't get to an agreement. And yeah, it's a formal stop, but think of it more like a signal. It's the universe telling you it's time to change up your strategy.
All right, so why? Why do mediations hit a wall like this? Understanding the common reasons can actually help you make sense of your own experience and plan your next move a lot more effectively. And when you look at the reasons, it could be a lot of things, right? Sometimes emotions are just running way too high and it clouds everyone's judgment. Other times, maybe one side isn't really trying, they're just going through the motions. Communication style is huge. If it's just not productive, the whole thing can get derailed. And hey, sometimes a dispute is just incredibly complicated, or maybe the mediator just wasn't the right fit to navigate it. Figuring out which of these might have been in play is a really big first step.
Okay, so you get what an impasse is, and you've got some ideas about why it might have happened. So what do you do right now, in the next 24 hours? Let's turn that understanding into an immediate, actionable plan.
In these first 24 hours, your main goal is just stability. First things first, stay calm. Seriously. Making big decisions when you're emotional, that's your enemy right now. Second, have a really good talk with your attorney, break down what went wrong. Third, and this one is absolutely critical, figure out your BATNA. And finally, think about keeping your last offer on the table. It just shows you're still open to finding a solution.
So I mentioned this thing, BATNA. What on earth is that? Well, it stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. And listen, this isn't just some fancy acronym for a backup plan. It is your single most powerful tool from here on out. Knowing exactly what you'll do if there's no deal, whether that's going to court or just walking away, is what gives you the clarity and the leverage you need for every single decision that comes next.
All right, so you've got a clear head, you know your BATNA, now you can actually start to look down the road ahead. And there are basically 4 main paths you can choose to go down from here.
And this chart, it lays it all out beautifully. Just look at the trade-offs here. See how on the left, with another try at mediation or negotiation, you have a ton of control and the cost and formality are pretty low. But look what happens when you move to the right, toward arbitration or litigation. Your personal control drops way down, while the potential cost and the formality, they shoot way up.
Okay, let's clear something up that trips a lot of people up. Mediation versus arbitration. They sound similar, but they are worlds apart. The easiest way to think about it is this. In mediation, a mediator facilitates. They help you and the other party come to a decision you both agree on. In arbitration, an arbitrator makes the decision for you, kind of like a private judge, and that decision is usually final. One is about agreement, the other is about a ruling.
Now, if your BATNA points you towards going to court, you got to be ready for a whole different ballgame. Litigation is a super formal, really demanding process. We're talking about collecting every single document, following strict court rules, and going through something called discovery, where both sides have to share all their info. It is definitely the most structured and often the most intense path to take.
Okay, so we've looked back at what happened, and we've mapped out the roads ahead. Now it's time to put it all together. Time to turn this impasse into real, decisive action.
And this is the key takeaway right here. The goal isn't about winning that mediation anymore. That ship has sailed. The new goal is to be smart, to be strategic, and to choose the absolute best next step for your specific situation based on your resources, your goals, and, of course, your BATNA.
Look, you're not stuck anymore. You're standing at that crossroad, but now you have a map. You know what each path looks like. You have all the information and the framework you need to make a clear, empowered choice. So the only question left is, what's your next move going to be?